The KCSN Live Postgame Show from the Kingdom Bar and Grill in Overland Park is about to begin. Join BJ Kissel, Ken Swanson, and Marleah Campbell for the top moments, the updates you need to know, and the best analysis you can find from the entire KC Sports Network crew. Entertain, educate, inform. KCSN. Hit that subscribe button. This is the KCSN Live Postgame Show with BJ, Kent, and Marleah from the Kingdom Bar and Grill in Overland Park.
The Bengals take the AFC North Division. The Chiefs lose the grip of the number one seed in the AFC, and we will talk about all of that and what it means here on the KCSN postgame show. I'm BJ. That's Kent. That is Marleah. Chiefs 31, Bengals 34. Welcome out to the Kingdom Bar and Grill here in Overland Park. Kent, just going to set the stage for you because you have some takes.
Have you guys ever seen Inside Out?
Yeah.
I am the
red guy.
Yeah.
Saw where this is going.
I am furious right now for so many reasons. I hate being ref guy. The refs were so awful. Oh my gosh. What was that? There was the illegal hands in the face. I think you have to touch the face for it to be illegal. That's how you're going to end the game after you extended the drive for the Bengals on multiple possessions. I mean, look, Jamar Chase is amazing, but that game and the opportunities for Jamar Chase to be amazing were set up by some of the most egregious calls I have seen this entire season. It seemed extremely not coincidental. It's just like perfect timing so many times. I got anger on Spags. I got anger on a lot of different things, but that was just such a horrific fourth quarter from the refs.
We'll get to all of that. We'll unpack it. We'll unpack all of it together. Marleah, I have no idea. I have no idea how to transition.
I met Marleah like once before today. Sorry.
I'm going to follow that, yelling even louder than he did. Yeah, I mean, that was just tough to watch. And with so much on the line in the fourth quarter on the final drive, you just hate to see that go down to. And you hate to be the ref guy, but it doesn't feel like there's another way to say how that went down.
Yeah, we were talking about all of that during the game, and it obviously wasn't doing any favors, any of that. To me, Jamar Chase is the story of the game to me. That dude, and Joe Burrow, he knew when to leave the pocket. He made plays when he had to make plays. Disappointing for the Chiefs. A lot of guys had opportunities in one-on-one situations, but we knew that coming into this situation that's what the Bengals are going to do offensively. They're going to give you opportunities if you're a defensive back in a 50-50 situation to go up and make a play. And you could tip your cap to the other guy going out there, and Jamar Chase, stud, not a rookie stud, go out there, set a record most yards ever.
Yeah,
top 5 receiver.
11 catches, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns, most receiving yards in a single game by a rookie in NFL history. I mean,
not bad, and it sucks that it came against the Chiefs in that way. And we'll start to unpack it. We're going to have Craig and Maddie on the show here in a little bit to help us break this one down and what it actually means and get past the emotion part of it and be like, okay, what does it mean? We're gonna stay with the emotion for a little bit here.
I don't know, buddy.
We're gonna stay with the emotion because the story, there's multiple storylines to unpack. First one I want to talk about, Chiefs offense. 28 points put up in the first half. Second half, 3 points.
Yeah.
What was the number one? It's always a lot of things, but what was the thing that stood out to you?
I think, there's a big drop by Travis Kelce that killed a drive. I think that was part of it. Not finishing in the red zone. The Chiefs had a chance to go down and score a touchdown to take the lead, and they didn't. I mean, we probably would have been the same situation anyway, but, executing the opportunities that are in front of you, and possessions got reduced down a little bit too by them also. So, a lot of little things, and that's been the case for the stalls in this offense when it happens.
Yeah. All right. Again, we appreciate everybody for joining us here. We are at the Kingdom Bar and Grill out in Overland Park. It should be open with people coming and being able to join us at the bar here by the time the playoffs here. There's not a date yet set, but as soon as there is, it will be all over social media. And Marleah, I know you're waiting to hear from Coach Reed in his postgame press conference because there are some injury updates that we need to get some clarity on. Lucas Niang and obviously Orlando Brown had the calf injury, which I had said before, and I don't want to put this out, we don't know, but sometimes when they say calf injury, the calf can also be Achilles, and it's never good when it's happening in pregame warmup. So hopefully there's some clarity. We don't normally get clarity from Coach Reed in postgame press conferences, especially when it comes to injuries, but if it's a big key one, they won't have a choice but to provide a lot of that information. So no, Marleah, you're listening to that, but for you and watching this game, just what was multiple things that were frustrating, but just what was one of the main takeaways you had for the Chiefs offensively?
Yeah, offensively, I mean, gosh, you scored 3 points in the second half and just really couldn't get anything going. I mean, there's so many numbers to look at, but it's just whatever rhythm you had in the first half just completely dissolved in the second half. And it was tough to watch. And then you match that with a rough defensive half. You know, I think about that 3rd and 27 late in the game there. That meant everything. I mean, that was huge to get the momentum shifted and to give the Chiefs offense one more shot. So it was the perfect storm for disaster in the second half.
And that sets us up because I know it's going to be one of the questions you have. When you said Spag's name, I'm assuming you are referencing basically the zero blitz. I'm assuming is what that was on 3rd and 27. They send the house after Jamar Chase has been winning every one-on-one situation, and you put Charvarius Ward back in that situation in a one-on-one. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, that was one of the – I mean, you live by the Spags, die by the Spags, I guess. Like, Spags is going to stay aggressive. They elected to leave Charvarius Ward one-on-one with Jamar Chase on a 3rd and 27, and Joe Burrow threw the ball up and prayed to God, which is basically half of his yards today. But we're going to hear some stupid narratives for the rest of the week that Joe Burrow is like the second coming of Tom Brady and that Patrick Mahomes is less than, which is going to just drive me nuts because it's, I mean, whatever. But that play was all, I mean, it was a horrendous call. It was a terrible call. You're 3rd and 27. I think Spags thinking is he's going for broke to try to keep him out of field goal range. I hate the call. I think it was a terrible call. I think it was a terrible decision. Charvarius Ward, he's been better this year, but he is not a number 1 corner. He's a solid number 2 corner, and he's planted himself as a solid number 2 type corner. The Chiefs don't really have a number 1 corner on their team. They have solid players, and you kind of saw the deficiencies of them today. They got opportunities outside. The Chiefs had no chance of stopping them. Rashad Fenton, a lot of PIs, real grabby all day. Charvarius Ward, same thing. I mean, how many times did Charvarius Ward get flagged the last drive? Yeah. I mean, those guys got exposed. In the one area of the field that the Chiefs can be exposed, the Bengals just went to town on because nothing outside of those outside throws was doing anything for the Bengals, but they just kept hammering it home.
All right, let's bring on our good buddy. He'll make you feel a little bit better because it always makes me feel better when I see Mr. Craig Stout and I see this smiling face. Let's go over tomorrow's headlines with Craig. I know we're making
hold up. Oh, flag on the play. Nope. No. We're going no further.
We had enough.
No. We're not doing that yet. How's it going, guys?
How do you think, Craig?
How do you think we're all doing in this room?
We're not doing well on this couch.
I'm sorry, Marleah.
Craig, he sat there and just didn't talk to anyone watching the game for the entire second half.
I'm aware. I've watched football with that man before. I'm quite well aware of how this goes. Yes.
We had it on here to talk about the offense. I don't really. Can we start with something else? Can I just get your thoughts on Steve Spagnuolo real quick and on that decision on that 3rd and 27? Can we start there?
Sure. Steve Spagnuolo was getting beat up by Jamar Chase for most of the day. They were running a lot of coverages that didn't offer a lot of vertical help to Jamar Chase. They were cutting a lot of stuff in the middle of the field, and when push came to shove at the end of the game, they didn't adjust. I mean, we tend to see Spagnuolo kind of put more of a shell on top of his cornerbacks than we've seen. Now, the blitz was getting home. Don't get me wrong. It was getting home just fine, but they're not bringing Joe Burrow down. They're not hitting him. They're not really dragging him to the ground enough on the blitz. And so that left these opportunities late in the game where he started to see these blitzes coming again and is just saying, hey, I'm going to chuck it up to my guy. Because right now he was on God tier. Jamar Chase was amazing. He really was. He was incredible in this game and was able to, beat up on Charvarius Ward on the outside. And Spagnuolo didn't adjust. Spagnuolo didn't try and keep the topper on that. Now, I kind of get that a little bit. They're trying to limit yardage because they want to get home, get that sack, force a punt, because any sort of yardage is going to be a field goal. Now, in retrospect, yeah, definitely. You would have accepted a 5-yard gain underneath, take the field goal, live to let your offense fight another day. But I get what he's doing, trying to get the punt, trying to hold, the Bengals off the board there. But man, when you got a guy on the outside playing that well, and I mean, even when Charvarius Ward has his hand in there, he's still bringing the ball in. You got to give him some help. You've got to at least make Joe Burrow think twice about throwing that ball. And even if that is a safety over the top, that's what you got to do.
That's my question is, and not that they did anything to confuse Joe Burrow or make him look uncomfortable outside of Chris Jones just absolutely being unblockable. Even when they tried to put two guys or chip or slide over, he was beating whatever it was. So are you doing Joe Burrow a favor by sending the house, just making the decision very easy? Not that he didn't probably know I'm throwing the ball to one regardless. Like, listen, I'm going over here. But when you send guys, my two thoughts were, are you making the decision too easy on him? And B, when you send the house like that, are you expecting that a route to get 27 yards doesn't have time to develop because you want the ball out of his hand? Obviously, it didn't work out that way. He picked up 30. I just wonder what those numbers normally are when you call that kind of play to get the ball out, to have it be shorter than that.
I mean, that's been the way that Steve Spagnuolo has played his defense for the entire time that he's been in Kansas City. Let's be real here. He wants to force throws to the outside. He wants to force a lower percentage throw, which, I mean, it may seem like that was a high percentage throw today, but that's a lower percentage throw for any quarterback in the league. Ja'Marr Chase is just awesome. He really is. So that's the way that he's played his defense consistently. So this is like Kent said, when in the lead up here, you live by the Spags, you die by the Spags. That's kind of the way that it is. He forces those lower percentage throws, and he hopes that his corners can stand up to the task, play the ball a little bit better. It just wasn't the case on this particular one. And yeah, he got the ball out quick. I mean, against the blitz there, you want him to try and throw 30 yards to a cornerback that's squeezing the boundary because, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have a wide receiver that comes up with that ball. It just seemed like that wide receiver came up with every single one of those balls on the day.
Here's my problem, Craig. Spags wanted that throw.
Yeah.
He wanted that throw.
I know.
And the context clues were there from the play before, because there was no trying to get half and getting it into a third and manageable for them. On 2nd and 27, what did Joe Burrow do? He went outside to try to challenge down the field. You knew what was coming.
Yeah.
Steve Spagnuolo actively chose today on 3rd and 27, 3rd and a quarter of the field, that he wanted Charvarius Ward versus Ja'Marr Chase. That was the choice.
It's a tendency breaker for playoffs, Kent.
Well, now they're going to have to play an extra playoff game, BJ.
Okay, well, let's have that. You want to have that conversation? Because we started to talk about that, where everybody's going to get emotional about this, and it's be pragmatic. What does this actually mean? And this is where, if we're going to get the information regarding, can they be the 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed, where do they end up? And is the only ramification that they don't get the bye, which is not nothing, but is it they have to go to Nashville to play the AFC title?
I mean, maybe, yeah. That's the way that it ends up here. And unfortunately, with the injuries that the Chiefs sustained on the offensive line today, I don't know that anybody thinks that Lucas Niang is getting back, but maybe Orlando Brown needs an extra week, and now they don't have that. And you don't have some of these guys, you're going to put a little more wear and tear on their bodies. Now, that's not to say that the Chiefs can't go. They can't do all of that stuff. There's a lot of things that had to line up very specifically this week in order for the Cincinnati Bengals to win, and it still took a little extra. So, I mean, they're not counted out of any game that they're going to be in here. It just, now all of a sudden, you're going to have to go on the road for the AFC Championship game, potentially, probably now, depending on how the 2 and the 3 seed and the 4 seed shakes out here. Now you're also potentially going to have to go on the road for your second game as well. So you definitely have to play in week 18. And that's against a Denver Broncos team that's going to be pretty hungry, and that defense flies around a little bit. So once again, putting your offense in a chance where guys can get hurt. We talked about this a little bit last week, trying to pull guys a little early and get them some rest. Now you're not able to. Now you've got to play. Now you got to line up, and everything's on the line from here on out.
Most frustrating part is the biggest takeaway from this game may be whatever is the case with Orlando Brown, and that's taking nothing away from the loss of potentially having that 1 seed. Yeah,
Craig, I'm not the guy that thinks the fix is in for a game.
It's a great setup for a point.
But like, also, was it like in the back of your mind, just like a little bit, a couple times there? Because honestly, the officiating was as bad as I've seen it the entire season. It was embarrassment. I think every single person on that group has to be held accountable, and they need to speak for themselves, because that was one of the worst officiated games I have seen in my experience as a Chiefs fan. We got something.
Yeah, quick. We got Andy Reid at the podium. Injury update. So we're looking at Lucas Niang tore his patellar tendon. So that hurts. And then Orlando Brown, calf strain. So that's could be speculating a week, a couple more weeks. Yeah. I mean, it just kind of depends on the severity in that regard. But torn patellar tendon, calf strain.
Yeah. Interested. I've heard calf strain before, and it wasn't a calf. It ended up not being a calf strain. So I need to see the way in which that was brought up and the vibe of the room and everybody else. Yeah. But obviously not good news for Lucas Niang. And we talked about the depth of the offensive line and those guys. Joe Thuney, we talked about had they won. We talked about on the halftime show.
I'll actually ask you a question, Craig, now that I think about it. So is Joe Thuney the Chiefs' best left tackle?
My goodness. I mean, it helped that he was going up against a guy in Trey Hendrickson that maybe doesn't have the most length on the outside, because Joe Thuney is not going to have your traditional offensive tackle arm length there. But yeah, he looked great. He looked great framing Hendrickson for most of the day. You know, a couple times that he got, but that's a really good pass rusher. Guy that's having an awesome season this year. Joe Thuney stepped out there effortlessly and really played his ass off. He was good for 99% of the day. So that is something, you know, we made the joke, you know, when this first kind of started that, oh man, you know, they're paying him, you know, left tackle money. Guess what? He played left tackle today and he looked pretty good doing it. So, I mean, I think you feel okay about him getting out there, playing some snaps if they need him to. I imagine we're going to see, you know, Prince Tega Winogo, Kyle Long active next week, for at least next week, if not beyond that. So that's going to be a spot where we might see some shifting. We might see some moving around, but the Chiefs have insulated themselves a little bit better in their tackle depth this year. But man, it really like you get a little bit of flashbacks going back to last year, Chiefs losing both starting tackles like that. That just sucks. And unfortunately, it wasn't a bigger story of the day. I mean, like they really did play well, and it's going to get overshadowed by the rest of the day here.
The fact that you have a guy in Joe Thuney that can step in and play that role at all, and I've seen some of the comments coming through about like a guy like Andrew Wiley. You lose 2 starters after inactives, and you have guys who can go out there that have NFL experience that can still step in and play. That's huge. And guys who've played in big games.
I'll even add, I think part of the reason Joe Thuney's here is for this exact scenario. Yep. Like literally this exact scenario. This guy is a Iron Man. Like, okay, so like what was the issue with the Chiefs? The attrition on the offensive line cost them last year. What happened? They went out and got the Iron Man of the NFL along the offensive line, a guy that can literally play any position. And Joe Thuney has played admirably or well at every position.
Oh, they're talking about Kyle Long.
No.
Just kidding.
All right, find him on Twitter at BarleyHop. Craig, I cannot wait to talk to you more on the KC Laboratory Live show tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Thank you for spending some time with us today, though.
Appreciate you guys.
All right. You know what Craig showed right there with some leadership, and the Chiefs are going to have to see some leadership just like you've seen from Fairway Independent Mortgage. And we know they make the home loan process as simple as possible by guiding you through every step, just as they've done for the past 25 years. Call Jennifer Dixon at 816-390-8898. That's 816-390-8898. Great rates, a focus on customer service, and the fastest turn times in the industry. That's Fairway Independent Mortgage. Again, appreciate everybody who's watching, whether you're watching on the 101 The Fox Facebook page, or whether you're watching on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, or you're listening after the fact on Monday morning on Apple or Spotify. We appreciate that. If you go ahead and subscribe and follow us, we are not that old, just launching last May. A lot of cool stuff we've done this season, a lot of cool stuff in store for the immediate future. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we will have people joining us here for the playoffs. And what we originally thought could end up being a bye-week show, we're just trying to see who the Chiefs' opponent might be. Looks like now we might have people here for that first week of the playoffs, unless some different things happen. But
It'll take a miracle.
And we're going to talk a little Big Cedar Golf best drive of the game right now. And tough game, but what was the drive that stands out to you in a positive manner from the Kansas City Chiefs from today?
I'm going to cheat a little bit here this week, if that's okay with you. I mean, I cheat on the golf course from time to time. You know, I might get a little foot wedge here and there.
We are professionals. It's okay.
We'll just go with the first one, but I think we'll go with the first touchdown drive of the game. And here's the thing: the Chiefs punted their first opening drive, and then they went on a run, 4 straight touchdowns. Mm-hmm. That massive stretch towards the end of basically the entire first half after that first punt was just an outstanding performance from them. The offense was really clicking and humming on all cylinders. 4 straight touchdown drives, but the first one, the response, they went 5 plays, 72 yards. It's kind of a quick strike. It was their quickest strike off touchdown drive of the game.
Yep.
4 straight though. And here's what gets crazy. The offense in the second half, 3 possessions.
Yeah,
it's insane. Like just the juxtaposition on both sides. But we'll go with the 4 touchdowns. We'll go with the 4 touchdowns back to back in response to that opening punt in the first half.
I think it's a big one. I think we talked about the throw to McColl being one of the better throws and just the response and his ability to track that ball and everything. It makes it a good one, and I think you picked out a great one for this Big Cedar Golf best drive of the game. And right now, let's take a look at what makes Big Cedar so special. Big Cedar Lodge, Big Cedar Golf best drive of the game, Marleah, and I know you have another update for us.
2. So we're waiting for Mahomes to get to the podium right now. Andy Reid was relatively quick and out, as he is after, these kind of games. Mm-hmm. But 2 things, and they're both things we brought up at the top of the show here. One is penalties. His quote from that was, "I'd like to comment on each one, but I don't want to be fined." So that is how Reid feels about those. Yeah.
Huh.
And then the second one is the play we talked about, the 3rd and 27. He just said we probably could have helped out a little bit more on Chase, which is what you were kind of implying earlier. Yeah. So, quick answers from Reid today, but the penalties comment I thought was interesting.
He doesn't do that does not do that very often.
It's because they were terrible. They were horrific.
They were. We talk about margin of error. You hate when you talk about margin of error all of the time. And these are the 8 plays that were either decided by a ref or just a 50-50 ball that went up. It feels like a non-normal amount of those didn't go the Chiefs' way. It's the reason that's so frustrating. Those 50-50 balls. Outside of Byron Pringle making a fantastic play on what could have been an interception, I have no complaints about what we saw from the Chiefs' offense. Like you said, 3 possessions in the second half. There were a couple plays that could have been here or there.
Drops.
We also lost 2 left tackles after inactives. Like the fact that they functioned at all in the second half. We talked about it at halftime. It was amazing what they were doing. The Bengals, we're going to talk a little bit about it. I don't want to make any big prognostications on what that meant without going back and watching it because they didn't have a lot of snaps. And then on the defensive side, it was key penalties on a handful of plays. And then we knew there were going to be 50-50 balls all over the place. This is what the Bengals offense, they're going to throw the ball up to T. Higgins. They're going to throw it up to Jamar Chase. I would like the guys to make a few more plays, but if they make 2 or 3 more plays on 3rd downs, it's a completely different ball game if you take some of those penalties out. So it's the reason I'm not as frustrated that we're really frustrated about 6 to 8 plays overall in dealing with what the Chiefs were dealing with and the way that the offense overall still looked okay and everything had to go to the Bengals' way at home with everything riding for them. I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
I don't like the fact that they didn't have to play the wild card round, but other than that,
I mean, on those penalties, the Bengals 5 for 62 yards. We had 10 for 83. And how many of those came in the last 2 minutes of the game here? And those are magnified when you're in the situation you're in. But
I believe 6 led to first downs for the Bengals. Yeah. 6 penalties led to first downs for the Bengals. And the goal line situation too down there. That was not illegal hands to the face. I would love to see another angle of this illegal hands to the face.
That one was
love to see what they saw.
Yeah. And sometimes the more you think about it, the more that every time they showed a one-on-one or they showed Chris Jones up, they were not blocking Chris Jones at all, which makes, I think, what Joe Burrow and getting the ball to Jamar Chase and just him winning every time, it was still freaking impressive.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
This was, I don't want to say a star is born because Jamar Chase was already a top 5 receiver, but like this was his coming out party. They just clinched the division. It was the biggest game of Joe Burrow's career to this point, biggest game of Jamar Chase's career to this point, and they went out and absolutely killed it. It's going to be the talk of the NFL. It's going to annoy you on social media for a really long time, and the people who really don't care are the people that have to get back to work. And what this means now is they might not get that bye week, which means we get an extra week of football. These guys don't get that break, but this is the situation they put themselves in, and frustrating is that some of it was out of their hands.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so frustrating is because this team has fought and scratched and clawed to get to this point, and what ultimately cost them is some things that were out of their control. And that hurts. That is, it's immensely frustrating because of everything that has happened to this point.
All right, let's bring on Matty Lane right now to go over his key observations and what he thought. Matty, the talk of the next few days will be who is to blame for what happened. Is it play call? We haven't even talked about the stuff at the end of the game, but just what was it for you? Where's the blame to go?
I mean, there's obviously so many places. So, coming on now, you guys have been talking about it for a while, but like you do have to give a little bit of a nod. The officiating in this game wasn't great. Like there was a lot of ticky-tack penalties that were called both ways, but especially down the stretch, it seemed like against the Chiefs. But then at the same time, as you guys have been talking about with Craig and throughout the show, the Chiefs put themselves into that position by leaving Jamar Chase one-on-one and sitting the house on 3rd and 27. You put yourself in position to give up that catch or get another ticky-tack defensive pass interference call there. So the team kind of put themselves there. You got a bunch of bad officiating, and then you get to that final 4th down or goal line stop. It's a very college move. You see it a lot more in college than you do in the NFL. But letting them score there on the 3rd and inches run, which should have been 3rd and 5+ because there was a missed false start, but letting them score on the 3rd and inches play, like from a college perspective, you would 100% see most college teams do that. You would get the ball back to your star quarterback with 2 minutes left and two timeouts at that point in time. The Chiefs not doing that, that's going to rub fans the wrong way, and I really wish they would have because I think we got robbed of a chance to see a great performance there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even gotten to that. I mean, there's some in-game decision making there with Spags and with the game management in the second half, and like some of the timeout decisions in the last 3 minutes of the game too. Like, there's a lot of things we could discuss here, with that even. So how are you ascribing blame? Like, if you're trying to hand out percentages of blame for what just happened, what are you doing, Matty?
So I don't know if I can do percentages, but I think you have to start with Steve Spagnuolo. And I don't think the Chiefs' defensive game plan was terrible. They tried to be super physical in the first half. They tried to challenge these receivers, and they got a couple defensive pass interferences that were, very 50-50. They could have gone either way, but I think you live with that. And you got a lot of the pressure was getting home. They were getting free blitzers coming at Joe Burrow time and time again. It just kind of fell apart in the second half when the Bengals realized every deep shot was either going to be a catch or was going to get a pass interference. Like, that was the only two options, and the Chiefs struggled to adjust from there. So I do think you got to say Steve Spagnuolo kind of fumbled the bag, especially on 3rd and 27. You have to force a rookie kicker into a long go-ahead field goal at that time. You have to. That's the only option, is to force them to kick that field goal. So him not doing that stinks. The Chiefs' offense in the second half, limited amount of drives, not good. I mean, 3 points in the entire second half, that's not great. They made some mistakes on their own. I think we'll kind of touch on some of those here in a second. So, and then you get to the refereeing. So, there was multiple issues for this team up and down that kind of contributed to the loss, and only one of them was out of their control.
And I want to jump in here real quick. Or did you see the tweet? I don't know if we're looking at the Ian Rappaport. You take the Ian Rappaport tweet.
So we got two. One, I'm assuming you're talking about the Broncos tweet, right?
Maybe
no.
Not.
Okay,
No.
then I have two.
Okay.
We'll start with Ian Rappaport, who said Orlando Brown had an MRI on his calf, and the source is describing the injury as minor. So that is good news.
Good.
We told you earlier in the show the calf strain, which could be a variety of ranges of severe. So minor, which is good. The second is from the Broncos. This was 3 minutes ago. Drew Lock is questionable to return with a right shoulder injury today. Obviously big as the Chiefs prepare for the Broncos next week.
That was big. I mean, are they going to have a quarterback next week?
I'm looking through all of the people on social media talking about Andy Reid calling out the officiating, because that's as much as Andy Reid's going to be like, it fucking sucked. All right, like it's a reason that we lost.
I have no qualms with anybody blaming the refs for what we just saw. I mean, the refs affected the line on that game. Like I'm sorry, they did. The drives
they made
that got
themselves
extended.
A story that they didn't deserve to be.
I mean,
they never deserved.
I didn't even think about the false start that Maddie brought up.
Yeah, that's
seriously, it's a comedy of errors.
Joe Burrow mentioned it. That's like one of the first things he says in his post-game interview on the field. Joe Burrow acknowledged that they got lucky and got some calls that went their way. Like when you see a starting quarterback kind of come off with one of the first things they say to be that after this kind of games, like it's just that lets you know that even on the field, it kind of people saw the officiating overall. I'm not even saying specifically against the Chiefs, but just the officiating overall was really bad in this game.
And that's a bigger discussion because we talked about this. I don't understand. And maybe it's just because every time I see a 50-50 ball and I see the receiver extend his arm at the top of his route, I thought that was an automatic flag. I don't know why, but every time we see it now, you see the top of his route, he extends his arm, and the Chiefs did it. Like, it works both ways. Is every time I see it, it's like, I thought that was the whole point, is they can't do that. So can somebody explain what the rule is to me? Well, it seems like every time they're extending their arm, the DB's flying back and he catches the ball. I'm like, I didn't think you could do that.
There were a couple. I mean, there were a couple of those, and I mean, that is the rule, BJ. That is how the rule is supposed to be called. You're right. No, it's a good point.
No, but they made an emphasis. No, but there was an emphasis on the extension of the arm, and so as soon as the extension, it's an automatic flag. They came to training camp, and the referees every year when you work for the team, they come and they like go out to practice and they throw all the flags and all that. Well, they come and meet with the media, and you can ask them all kinds of questions on what the focuses are. And they talked about that one year. One of the big focuses on extending the arm. They said anytime you extend the arm, it's a flag. Everyone in the league extends the arm.
You're right, and they didn't call it. Which is why we're having this discussion right now. It's just like it's infuriating. I'm sorry, I can't get over it. Like among all, like look, I don't think it's the entire reason why. I think it's the reason that this game was close, and I think it's the reason that the Bengals kind of won this game. I think they got. I mean, I think about like the drives that got extended for opportunities for Joe Burrow to go throw it up to Jamar Chase happened on the back of third downs, third down penalties. 6 first downs generated.
So let's get this straight and let's get it on record very clearly stated.
I know, here we go.
You were saying the reason the Chiefs lost this game 100% referees.
Not 100%, but I do think that I think it affected the outcome.
99.78.
I think if
don't look up.
I think if this game is called appropriately, the Chiefs are in first place in the AFC right now. Yes, but it wasn't. Okay. There were some horrendous calls. Seriously, and I'm not this guy. I'm not this guy. But that's what happened today.
Maddie, I think we've got a new thing. We're just going to put a camera on him the entire game, every game.
We should.
It is this the entire time.
Oh, I'm aware. I've been there. It's this game would have been a fun one. This would have been a fun game to watch with Kent live because I'm with him. The refereeing was really bad. I'm not going to go as far as he did to put blame on them because I think the Chiefs continuously put them in a position that the refs could impact the play by their own decisions. So that has to be, calculated in for me. Like, there's no way that the Chiefs should have been in the position to let the refs miss a false start or something like that. It's like they're just as much to blame, but the refereeing in this game was incredibly poor.
And for the record, I'll never blame, whether it's good or bad, I'll never blame the referees for anything. Just because there's like 80, 100 plays in a game. Like, it's not because of that one play. Outside of college targeting where you take like a star player out in the first quarter, then it's like, okay, you can't do that. But outside of that, I'll never blame the refs for anything.
BJ, what if I told you it was the same side judge that misplaced the ball or mismarked the ball 3 times and had to be corrected and called about 3 of the questionable penalties was all the same guy? Does that now change your opinion?
I would check his financials. That's what I would do. Okay. Figure out where those guys partying in the offseason.
You need 2 hands to count the calls that went against the Chiefs in the wrong direction.
Unless it's like a forward progress call, then I'm just triggered automatically.
Do we really need to go forward progress?
I see how far I can take you.
This is going off the rails. All right, Maddie, offensively, I thought Mahomes went nuclear. Drops kept it from going nuclear. And then, I mean, honestly, with 3 drives in the second half, one of them stalls out by a drive on a drop on a phenomenal play by Mahomes. The 70 air yard play at the end of the half. Some drops cost him, but I mean, largely the first half was outstanding.
Yeah, and I think that's the next place to take this. So first of all, hat tip to Joe Thuney. He probably put out the best all left tackle performance that we've seen out of the Chiefs this year. I think it was a good matchup for him, a guy that wasn't going to overly challenge him with a lot of length the entire game, but he did a really good job playing left tackle. Nick Allegretti stepped in and did good. So this offense was humming in the first half. The second half, it didn't click as much. And I think this kind of ties in. The Chiefs' run game was really good in this game. Their power run game, especially, they were being more physically dominant than the Bengals were, and it wasn't even close. They were running up and down the field. But when you look at that second half, when they had a couple of those drives kind of stall out, it came on the back of some short yardage. There was the drop to Travis Kelce. Even if you go to the field goal drive, I do believe that there was a little bit of a miscommunication on that third down where the Bengals showed cover 0 and the Chiefs didn't really have a good play to run in behind it. But like the run game was kind of resulting. It was very effective. But then as soon as the Chiefs got stopped, there was Derek Gore got stopped on a 2nd and short, and then they proceeded to not execute on the third down. Earlier, Darrell Williams got a 1-yard gain on 1st and 10 running the ball. The short runs were setting them behind the sticks in the second half, and it seemed like the offense was just not in a rhythm to capitalize on it like they were in the first half. So Mahomes was great. Run game was great. Just things seemed slightly out of sync in the second half, and I do think that plays a role in them losing this game.
I think the commitment to the run is part of it. I mean, I know the run was having success, but I think that is part of what changed about the rhythm of how they were doing. And, you know, there was a lot of explosive plays that they were generating in the first half. I don't know why they didn't continue to try to, and air it out a little bit more. And it does seem like they kind of went to more, I don't want to say ball control, but they were just trying to manage the game a little bit differently in the second half. And, I mean, it cost them. I mean, they only had three possessions. I mean, like, that's what's so stunning is they only had 3 possessions. You can kind of chalk it up. You can chalk one up to a drop on 3rd and 9. You can drop one. You can chalk one up to, the lack of execution down in the red zone. But just only getting 3 opportunities is pretty wild in and of itself too.
No, it is. And the running game was producing, explosive plays for the running game. I mean, they had over 100 yards on like 17 carries out of their 2 running backs. So the running game was working, and it was working really well. The problem is the Chiefs' offense isn't like this surgical attack where you're just going to get into a 3rd and 8 if you have to and just hit this really perfect timing route repeatedly over and over again. So as soon as you get that one short run, it puts you behind the sticks. And we're Chiefs fans. We're used to Patrick Mahomes getting us out of that scenario. But it just seemed like in the second half, there was a little bit of lack of cohesion between the entire offense. And it seemed like it was because they were trying to run it through that power run game, trying to slow the game down to maybe help those corner the secondary on the other side of the ball. I don't know. Just the lack of cohesion, the lack of rhythm on that offensive side, I do think played a big part in why the Chiefs could only score 3 points in the second half.
All right, Maddie, before we get you out of here, I want to talk about something real quick. Tyreek Hill, 6 catches, 40 yards, 10 targets.
You don't want my takes here. You don't want them, Kent.
Should we save him for the KC Laboratory live show tomorrow?
No, we can do it. If we got time, we can do it.
Do we have time, BJ?
Just tease it for your show tomorrow. Because
we'll save it.
There's a lot that there's a lot of takes flying around about this game. And there's going to be a lot of takes about this game.
There should be.
Save the Tyreek one will be a good one for tomorrow night.
Fine.
The only question, the only thing is how, what Jamar Chase just had one of the best receiving games we've ever seen. Who was the Chiefs' counterpart to that? Like, where was the Chiefs' counterpart to Jamar Chase going off? Who did they have besides their quarterback coming out and playing even close to that level? Because you know who it's supposed to be. It's just who was actually doing it.
Okay. Well, we'll get there. And we got plenty to talk about tomorrow on the KC Laboratory live show. We might even need to do a little Chiefs-tivis. It might be refs-tivis if we're not careful either. But that's Maddie Lane. Find him on Twitter at Chief in Carolina. We'll talk to you tomorrow at the KC Laboratory live show on the KCSN YouTube channel, 6:30 p.m. Central.
Later, guys.
Kent, I have some bad news for you. Not to rile you up at the end of this show, but you look at these box score. Not that a lot of national media and people would look at the box scores, but Patrick Mahomes, 26 of 35 for 259 and 2 touchdowns. And Joe Burrow, 30 of 39 for 446 yards and 4 touchdowns.
That's what happens when you throw fade routes outside all day. I mean, Jamar Chase really helped him out a lot and some busted coverage. Joe Burrow played well, but I refuse to hear the narrative. I refuse to believe it. I think it's ridiculous.
I'm going to be curious what the narrative coming out of this game is. And obviously the biggest news for me in the way that I think just moving on to the next thing of how does this game affect the next one outside of losing the number 1 seed. Hopefully you don't lose your left tackle. Doesn't sound like it's too serious with Orlando Brown, which is the biggest piece of this is that Chiefs didn't play well. They didn't get the ref calls on their side, and they still almost went on the road and won. They're still taking the team's best shot. They're not playing their best, and they still have a chance to win the game. No, people don't want to hear that now. Talked about this for 6 weeks when everybody was frustrated earlier in the season, but there are ramifications now that is going to make life more difficult for them to go back and win a Super Bowl because of what you said, things that were taken out of their hands because some professionals out there in black and white didn't live up to being a professional.
I hope people understand that how important a bye week is in your pursuit of a Super Bowl appearance. It's massive. It has historically been massive, and now that there's only one bye, I mean, you're one less game when everybody else in the entire AFC that's still playing has to play an extra game. You have 2 games at home to make it to a Super Bowl, and now it's an uphill battle. The Chiefs are going to host. They're probably going to beat the Broncos. They're probably going to be the 2 seed in the AFC, and they're going to have a chance to play one game at home and then just hope something happens with the Tennessee Titans, who, I mean, they're I'll be honest with you. I think the Titans are the worst 1 seed that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter.
Not
they're the 1
be
seed.
Super disrespectful to the Titans, but it's like if not getting the bye sucks. But as far as like a tough route to win the Super Bowl, if to get to the Super Bowl, you have to beat the Titans in Nashville without Derrick Henry. It's like, all right.
Derrick Henry might be back, by the way. They might have just
arrested.
They might have been able to pull it. They might be able to somehow. The Titans are going to survive and pull this off.
But
and
even with Derrick Henry, you're going to have to beat a good team to go to the Super Bowl. The Bengals scare me more than the Titans do because they have a dude and a quarterback who's got some moxie that can make some plays outside the pocket and can still do stuff with a poor offensive line. And he can still go make plays. There's not excuses around him like, oh, he needs an elite offensive line to go make plays. That ain't the case.
Yep. Got a couple things, just tidbits from Tyrann Mathieu at the press conference table. One, he talked about Ja'Marr Chase and just said, anytime you have a player like that, if you're having an off day, they're going to expose you. Obviously, we saw that today. Understatement of the night, probably.
I don't think it was an off day by the corners. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think that's just who they are.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There were a couple plays where Charvarius Ward had his hand on the football and moved it, and these monster mitts of a star just came over and took over. He just mossed them, and
but
Charvarius, top 5 receivers do.
He didn't really do a great job locating the football at all today, though. Like, and that's
except that one that was in his palm.
But did he? I know. He didn't
locate
locate that one. I don't think he located it.
I'm not going to
I think
defend
he was
the play
as
because it
surprised
wasn't
as
a
you
good
were.
game. It wasn't a good game. But you're right back in that situation. That's who they are. You're not going to face Ja'Marr Chase every week.
Yeah.
But every team's got a guy, but not guys that do that
dude's
every
different.
single
best game by a
time. The
rookie.
3rd and 27 where he like held it out. Basically like Charvarius did last week on the interception, where it was just like kid playing with his dad like in the backyard. That was not great.
Yeah. Also, one more thing. He said a lot of people are going to point to certain calls that were made late in the game, but outside of that, he thought they could have responded better and said the theme this week was, how are we going to respond when they make a big play, they make a big catch, and he just didn't think the response was there. And that's turning one bad defensive drive into 2. And the momentum that started literally the first play of the second half just kind of carried the rest of the half.
All right, let's one take looking forward. Now we had the update on Drew Lock saying who's going to end up playing quarterback for the Broncos going into this game. The Broncos don't have anything to play for at this point, but what are you looking forward to this week besides getting away from the narratives that are undoubtedly going to piss you off?
I mean, I'm looking forward to getting this game in the rearview mirror. Frankly, big game coming up. You gotta win this one. You gotta take care of business, and then you have put yourself back in the hole. You had a perfect golden opportunity handed to you, and you blew it. And so now you got to go respond, and you're gonna have to go do it the hard way. And it's the hard way. Make no mistake about it. I know the Bucs did it last year. This is the hard way. Hopefully they can respond. Hopefully this team has enough to respond.
Yeah, Mahomes said it best, I think. After you lose a game like you lost it today, it shouldn't be hard to be able to get yourselves up and ready to go next time. I mean, this has got to make you mad, and hopefully that shows early on the field next week.
The margin of error they gave themselves to be the 1 seed was shortened because of how they played early in the year, where they couldn't afford another mistake or another setback like this. It's frustrating because some of it was out of their hands, but they still had an opportunity to what Tyrann said, being a leader, doing exactly what you'd expect him to say. We'll see what he said in the locker room, see what he says to the media, but so looking forward doing the next thing. But thank you everybody for tuning in to this post-game show. Again, Chiefs 31, Bengals 34. It's It's going to be another week before we figure out where the Chiefs end up in this playoff race. Still a lot of different places they could end up. Again, we'll break that all down throughout the week at KC Sports Network. And real quick, just want to say Happy New Year and happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everybody out there. We appreciate what we were able to launch in 2021 with KC Sports Network. It has been nothing short of humbling and amazing. The gratitude is the only word that I know that we all use in describing what it has been and the support that we've gotten from all of you guys so early on, just eight and a half months into this company. It's been special, and we've got some cool stuff to announce here in the future. It seems like we're always saying that, and we're not making it up. There are cool things to announce, but just want to shout out and say thank you everybody for supporting us over the last 8 months as we get this all set up, and then over the next year. I can't tell you how excited we are for what we have coming, including all the stuff that you see on our YouTube channel, our podcast channels, and then that daily newsletter that you will find tomorrow on our Substack at kcsn.substack.com. But Kent, real quick, final thoughts, just 2022 KCSN.
Just wait, y'all. It's been special. It's been the coolest thing to be part of. And I can't wait for y'all to see what we're up to.
All right. For BJ, for Kent, for Marleah, thank you all for tuning in. Please subscribe, follow, rate, review, all that good stuff. And we'll see you tomorrow night on the KC Laboratory Live at 6:30 on all these same channels. Thanks.